It's my pleasure to have with me today Professor Peter Šojda from the Slovak Academy of Science in Bratislava. Professor Šojda is a leading international Kierkegaard scholar, and he's done substantial work in the fields of Kierkegaardian mysticism and the 20th century reception of Kierkegaard's thought. Professor Šojda, why does Kierkegaard make use of Socrates, a pagan philosopher, for an understanding of what he takes to be the problems of Christianity or Christendom in his own day?
Kierkegaard says sometimes that his philosophy revolves around a simple question. And the question is, what does it mean to be a Christian? And as we know, Kierkegaard posed this question to himself because it concerned his own life, his own existence. But he also posed this question to his contemporaries, to the age he was living in. And as far as he could see, for most people, this was an easy question with an easy answer. It was supposed that one is basically born a Christian, that one grows up in a Christian family, one's friends are Christians. One lives in a Christian state, as some would consider Denmark to be. So it was enough just to go with the crowd, and there was no doubt about one's Christian identity. The identity was secure. There was no reason to question it, to debate it. So Kierkegaard's question was in a way a provocation, because he wanted to stir controversy about something that was considered completely uncontroversial.
So how specifically do you see this as relevant for Socrates?
I think that Kierkegaard saw in Socrates a thinker whose philosophy also revolved around a simple question. And again, it was a question that was seen as a provocation, and it turned into a problem, something that was considered completely unproblematic. Socrates' question was, what does it mean to be a human being? And Kierkegaard notes that in Socrates' time, people were perfectly sure of being human and of knowing what does it mean to be a human being. But strangely enough, Socrates doubted that one is human simply by birth. Instead, he argued that we need to learn to be human. We need to learn what it means to be humans. And he considered this to be no easy task. He argued that every individual is faced with a task, with this question, and has to answer it with his or her own existence. So the question was addressed to the individual. The collective could not answer for the individual. The individual could not inherit the answer from the collective or delegate it to the collective. And I think that in this, Socrates was a source of inspiration for Kierkegaard, because also the question, what does it mean to be a Christian, is addressed to the single individual, and the individual cannot inherit the answer from the collective or delegate it to the collective. He must answer it with his or her own existence. So the answer can only come in the form of an existential transformation of the single individual.
So what special and unique message do you think Kierkegaard, as a Christian writer, has for us today in a pluralistic society?
I would like to highlight two aspects of Kierkegaard as a Christian writer. I think these two aspects are in a creative tension. The first aspect is that Kierkegaard is really a thinker who goes ad fontes. He goes to the sources of Christianity in this case. And that means, first and foremost, exploring the Bible. So when we read Kierkegaard, we see that he's a thinker who is an avid reader of the Bible. He's a very attentive reader. He has a great imagination, and he reads the Bible in a very creative way. So he plunges into the psychology of the biblical figures and explores their inner struggles. He invents alternatives to biblical stories and lets the reader compare them to the original. He plays for a long time with one sentence and analyzing each of its words and their potential meanings. So as readers, we're often surprised how much we discover through Kierkegaard's interpretations of the Bible. And the second aspect which I would like to highlight is that Kierkegaard always brings the Bible into a productive dialogue with non-Christian sources.
And so what example can you give for how Kierkegaard brings the Bible into a dialogue with other sources?
I think there are many examples of this in his works, both the published works and in his journals and papers, but I would like to mention one example, which is the pseudonymous work Fear and Trembling. As we know, in Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard plays or elaborates on the biblical motif of Abraham's sacrifice of Isaac, which is a story taken from the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. But interestingly enough, he does not explore this story with the help of Christian sources and Christian authors. In fact, he draws on a relatively broad variety of non-Christian sources. He borrows motifs from the Greek poet Homer, from the Greek playwright Sophocles and Euripides. He refers to the ancient historians Livy and Plutarch, and refers to the ideas of Greek philosophers such as Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So I think that what we can learn from Kierkegaard today is exactly this importance of solid knowledge of one's own tradition and its principal sources, and the bringing of this tradition into productive philosophical dialogue with sources from other traditions.